Tai Young pressed the broadcast button and sent their response. Nothing but the recorded sound of the bridge crew's collective laughter. He followed it with a simple text message in all the languages the aliens had used. "Thank you for the entertainment. We'll be in touch." Then he ordered all channels close, leaving the mighty Galactic Empire fleet to wonder why their intimidating arrival had been met with such an unusual response. As he looked at the massive alien armada through the bridge viewport, Tai Young couldn't help but shake his head in amusement. "Send word to all Earth and Colony Defense Forces," he ordered. "Tell them to proceed with Protocol Omega-7. And someone please let Research Division know their predictions were exactly right." He turned to Jinao with a smile. "I don't know about you, Commander, but I haven't had this much fun since the Academy." The alien fleet hung in space, their mighty weapons and advanced technology on full display, while the human ships began to move in what appeared to be completely random patterns. The game was about to begin, and only one side knew the real rules. Grand Marshal Kehoe paced across the command deck of his flagship, the Imperial Dawn, his metallic skin reflecting the soft purple lighting of the bridge. His footsteps echoed with increasing force as anger built within him. The holographic display of the human response, their mocking laughter, played again and again in his mind. In his 300 years of service to the Empire, Kehoe had overseen the conquest of 17 civilizations. Some had fought back with advanced weapons. Others had tried to negotiate. A few had even attempted to flee. But none, not a single one, had ever laughed. "Play it again," he ordered, his voice sharp enough to make nearby officers flinch. The sound of human laughter filled the command deck once more. Kehoe's facial plates shifted in a way that his species used to show extreme displeasure. Do-hyun, his strategic advisor for the past 50 years, stood at attention nearby. The younger officer's skin had a smoother sheen, lacking the battle marks that decorated Kehoe's frame. He manipulated the holographic controls with practiced ease, bringing up detailed scans of human space. "My lord, I've reviewed the data multiple times," Do-hyun reported, his voice carefully neutral. "Their defensive capabilities appear minimal at best. We detect no super weapons, no planetary shields, not even what we would consider a proper military fleet. The majority of their vessels appear to be civilian craft and mining operations." Kehoe's mandibles clicked together in frustration, a sound that made junior officers hurry to look busy. "Then why do they laugh?" he demanded, more to himself than his advisor. "Show me their military capabilities again." The holographic display shifted, showing a detailed analysis of human technology. Their ships were primitive by Imperial standards, using basic fusion drives instead of quantum propulsion, simple kinetic weapons instead of plasma cannons, and minimal shielding technology. Their space stations looked like they had been cobbled together from spare parts. "Perhaps they are insane," suggested Captain Yuri, one of Kehoe's most trusted battlefield commanders. "Some species react to fear with inappropriate emotional responses." Kehoe shook his head, his armor plates rustling. "No, I've seen fear in 1,000 forms." This was genuine amusement. He stopped his pacing and stared at the tactical display. "What are their ships doing now?" Do-hyun adjusted the display, showing the movements of human vessels throughout their system. "They appear to be moving randomly, my lord. Some are continuing their mining operations. Others are simply traveling between planets and stations. We can detect no military formation or defensive positioning." The Grand Marshal's eyes narrowed. He had not achieved his position by underestimating opponents. "Run a deeper scan. Check for hidden weapons platforms, cloaked vessels, anything that might explain their confidence." Hours passed as the Imperial fleet's advanced sensors probed every corner of human space. Officers came and went, bringing reports that all said the same thing. The humans had no significant military capabilities. They were, by all measurable standards, helpless before the might of the Empire. "My lord," Do-hyun finally said, "there is one unusual reading we can't quite explain." He highlighted a section of the scan data. Some of their mining vessels are emitting energy signatures we've never seen before. Our computers can't classify them. Kaiho leaned forward, studying the readings. Some new form of weapon. Unknown, sir. The energy patterns don't match any known weapon system. They're more similar to their mining equipment. But there's something about them our sensors can't quite analyze. The Grand Marshal felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries. Uncertainty. The humans were clearly inferior in every way, yet they acted as if they held all the advantages. Their ships moved without apparent purpose. Their vessels continued civilian operations as if the Imperial fleet didn't exist. And that laughter. Send a probe, Keiho ordered suddenly. Just one. Target one of their outer mining stations. Let's see how they react to a show of force. As the probe launched toward its target, Keiho watched the human vessels carefully. They made no move to intercept it. They didn't even seem to notice it. Their ships continued their apparently random movements, their mining operations continued uninterrupted, and their communication channels remained filled with casual civilian chatter. Either they are fools, Keiho said quietly, or they know something we don't. His mandibles clicked again. And I have never encountered a species of fools that achieved space travel. The probe was approaching its target now. Soon, they would have their answer. But deep in his armor-plated chest, Grand Marshal Keiho felt something he hadn't experienced since his first battle, a creeping sense of dread. The laughter of the humans echoed in his memory, and for the first time in centuries, he wondered if perhaps the Empire had made a terrible mistake. Deep within the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, hidden inside what appeared to be an ordinary mining facility, Commander Haynul watched the tactical display with a satisfied smile. The massive holographic projection showed hundreds of human ships moving across the solar system in what seemed like complete chaos. Mining vessels changed course without warning. Cargo ships took unnecessarily long routes between planets. Passenger liners altered their speed randomly. To any outside observer, it looked like humanity had collectively forgotten how to pilot their vessels properly. Alpha Group, adjust your mining pattern by 3 degrees, Haynul ordered calmly. Beta Group, increase speed by 12% for exactly 43 seconds, then resume standard velocity. Her voice was steady, almost cheerful, as she continued orchestrating what appeared to be madness. The command center buzzed with quiet activity. Officers at their stations monitored the movements of both human and Imperial ships, making tiny adjustments to their carefully planned chaos. The room itself was carved directly into the asteroid, its walls lined with screens showing every aspect of their operation. A door slid open with a soft hiss, and Operations Director Sunmai entered. Her uniform was crisp, her expression curious as she observed the tactical display. Status report, she asked, walking to stand beside Haynul. Phase 1 is proceeding exactly as planned, Haynul replied, gesturing to the display. The Empire's tactical AI is doing exactly what we predicted, attempting to identify patterns where there are none. They're completely missing what's actually happening. She highlighted a section of the display showing the Imperial fleet's sensor suites. They've run the same analysis 17 times in the last hour. Sunmi nodded, watching as a mining vessel suddenly changed its course for seemingly no reason. And our real preparations. Haynul pressed a few controls, and a new layer appeared on the tactical display, visible only to them. Behind the apparent chaos of ship movements, a complex pattern emerged. Every random course change, every speed adjustment, every seemingly pointless maneuver was actually part of an intricate dance. The resonance field is at 63% strength, Haynul explained. Every ship movement adds to the pattern. Even the Imperial fleet's sensor sweeps are unknowingly contributing to our field strength. We estimate full coverage in approximately 4 hours. A junior officer approached with a tablet. Commander, the Empire has launched a probe toward Mining Station 7. Right on schedule, Haynul said, checking her watch. They lasted almost exactly as long as we predicted before trying a show of force. She turned to Sunma. Would you like to do the honors? Sunma stepped forward, her eyes twinkling. Mining Station 7. Proceed with Protocol Sigma. Let's give our guests their first lesson in human ingenuity. Throughout the solar system, human ships continued their seemingly random movements. Miners kept drilling into asteroids. Cargo vessels continued their inefficient routes. Passenger ships maintained their erratic speeds. And beneath it all, invisible to Imperial sensors, something extraordinary was taking shape. Look at their fleet formations, Haynul said, highlighting the Imperial ships. They're so focused on finding military patterns that they haven't noticed how their own positions have shifted. Their attempts to maintain optimal scanning coverage have actually moved them exactly where we need them. A young tactical officer raised her hand. Commander, I'm picking up increased energy readings from the Imperial fleet. They appear to be charging weapons systems. Good, Haynul replied. That means they're feeding even more energy into the resonance field. Has anyone noticed that their communication lag has increased by 0.3 seconds? Sunma checked the readings and smiled. The arrogance of assumed superiority. They're so certain of their advanced technology that they haven't even considered why their systems are running slightly slower than normal. Haynul watched as another group of mining ships began their predetermined random maneuvers. To the Empire, it would look like simple inefficiency. To her, it was the final piece of an elegant puzzle falling into place. You know, she said thoughtfully, I almost feel bad for them. Their tactical AI is probably having the equivalent of a nervous breakdown trying to make sense of our movements. Don't feel too bad, Sunma replied. They did threaten to conquer us. A soft chime sounded from the tactical display. Field strength at 70%. Haynul announced. All ships, maintain current patterns, and someone please make sure Mining Station 7 records the Empire's probe attack from every angle. The footage will make an excellent teaching tool for the Academy's unconventional warfare class. As the Empire prepared to demonstrate their overwhelming power, humanity continued its elaborate dance through space, each seemingly chaotic movement bringing them one step closer to showing their would-be conquerors why exactly they had laughed at their threats. Purple-white beams of energy lanced through space, their brilliant light illuminating the surface of Ganymede. To the Imperial gunners who had fired them, these weapons could destroy entire cities. To Captain Da-hyun, watching from the bridge of the clever solution, they were little more than an interesting light show. The energy beams passed straight through the Ganymede outpost without leaving a scratch. The mining facility continued its operations, its crews working as if nothing unusual was happening. Da-hyun sipped his coffee, hiding his smile behind the cup as he watched the Imperial ships adjust their positions for another attack. Sir, Lieutenant Ji-woo called out from her tactical station, her voice containing just a hint of amusement. They're preparing another barrage. Their weapons are charging to 150% of previous levels. Let them waste their energy, Da-hyun replied, setting down his coffee. They still haven't realized we're operating on completely different physical principles. He stood up from his command chair and walked to the main viewport, hands clasped behind his back. In fact, they're playing right into our hands. The clever solution looked like a simple mining support vessel. Its hull was scratched and worn from years of service in the asteroid belt. No weapons were visible, no advanced technology showed on any scans. To the Empire's sensors, it was about as threatening as a space tugboat. Another barrage of energy weapons lit up space. This time, the Imperial ships had adjusted their frequencies, trying different wavelengths of destruction. The result was the same. Their fearsome weapons passed harmlessly through the outpost. Captain, called out the sensor officer, I'm detecting significant power drain in the Imperial vessels. Their weapon systems are consuming far more energy than they should. Da-hyun nodded. As expected, status of the resonance field, 87% and climbing rapidly, sir. Their energy weapons are feeding straight into it. Each shot strengthens our position. The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, monitoring the seemingly one-sided battle. To an outside observer, it would appear that the human ships were simply waiting to be destroyed. The reality was far more interesting. "Sir," Jiwoo reported, "we're receiving a message from Commander Hanyul. Phase 3 is ready to begin on your mark." Dahyun checked the tactical display one last time. The Imperial ships had arranged themselves in a perfect attack formation, their positions optimized for maximum firing coverage. They couldn't have placed themselves better if he had given them direct orders. "Send acknowledgement to command," he ordered, "and bring our systems out of standby. It's time to show our visitors why we found their threats so amusing." The clever solution hummed to life, but not in any way the Empire would recognize. There were no weapon systems charging, no shields activating, no engines powering up. Instead, the ship's true purpose began to manifest. "Resonance field at 92%, called out the sensor officer. "Imperial ships are still firing. Their energy weapons are now operating at 200% normal power." Dahyun watched as another futile barrage lit up space. The Empire's weapons were impressive, certainly. They operated on principles of physics that humanity had explored centuries ago before moving in a completely different direction. "Send to all stations," he ordered. "Begin calibration sequence. Let's show them what real mining equipment can do." Throughout the ship, systems that looked like simple industrial tools began to power up. They weren't weapons, not in any traditional sense. They were something far more interesting. "Imperial fleet is hailing us," Jiwoo reported. "They're demanding to know why their weapons aren't working." "No response necessary," Dahyun replied. "They'll understand soon enough." He picked up his coffee cup again, took another sip and smiled. "Status of the resonance field." 97%, sir. Their last barrage pushed it almost to critical mass. The Imperial ships hung in space, their mighty weapons finally falling silent as their commanders realized something was very wrong. Their energy readings were dropping, their systems were responding more slowly, and still, the humans did nothing but watch. "Sir," Jiwoo called out, excitement creeping into her voice. "Resonance field has reached 100%. Dahyun set down his coffee cup for the last time. "Send to all ships. Execute Phase 3. Let's show the Empire why you should never assume your way is the only way." As the Imperial fleet prepared for another attack, the human ships began to move. Not with weapons, not with any technology the Empire would recognize, but with something far more fundamental. They were about to demonstrate why humanity had chosen to laugh at the Empire's threats, and why that laughter had been entirely justified. Colonel Minji stood at the helm of the Practical Joke, a name that now seemed more appropriate than ever. Her mining vessel, one of thousands that worked the asteroid belts of the solar system, looked nothing like a warship. Its hull was stained with rock dust, its external equipment designed for breaking down minerals, not enemy ships. The Empire's massive fleet hung before them, their ships still recovering from the confusion of their failed attack on Ganymede. Their energy weapons had done nothing, and now their sensors were showing strange readings they couldn't explain. "All ships, this is Colonel Minji," she broadcast on the secure human frequency. "Commence operation perspective. Remember our primary objective. We're not here to destroy them. We're here to educate them." She paused, watching as her crew made final adjustments to their modified mining equipment. "Let's show them why we laughed." The Practical Joke moved forward, leading a fleet of similar vessels. Each ship looked worn and industrial, carrying equipment that seemed better suited for cracking rocks than engaging in space combat. The Empire's fleet responded with predictable military precision, raising their shields and charging their weapons. "Energy readings from the Imperial fleet are spiking," reported her sensor officer. "They're bringing all defensive systems to maximum power." Minji nodded, suppressing a smile. "Exactly as expected. They still think this is about power. Begin activation sequence for the primary excavators." Throughout her ship, mining equipment hummed to life. The sound was familiar to any asteroid miner, the deep vibration of rock-cutting beams warming up. But these weren't ordinary mining tools anymore. They had been modified, not to be more powerful, but to work in a way the Empire had never considered possible. "Imperial fleet is hailing us," called out her communications officer. "They're demanding our immediate surrender." Again. "No response needed," Minji replied. "Our actions will speak clearly enough. All ships, activate your excavation beams." Standard mining pattern Alpha. The space between the fleets lit up, not with weapon fire, but with the golden glow of mining beams. To the Empire's sensors, they would look hardly more dangerous than industrial cutting torches. That was their first mistake. The beams passed through the Empire's shields as if they didn't exist. Not because they were powerful enough to penetrate them, but because they operated on entirely different principles. The Empire's shields were designed to stop energy weapons, kinetic impacts, and every other form of attack they had encountered in their centuries of conquest. But they had never encountered mining equipment modified to work in 5-dimensional space. "First contact in 3 seconds, reported her tactical officer. "Mining beams are functioning at optimal efficiency." The beams touched the Imperial ships, and for a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly, portions of their hull began to simply disappear. Not exploding, not melting, but being systematically removed as if they were just another asteroid being processed for minerals. "Status report," Minji called out, watching as the Empire's mighty warships began to lose pieces of themselves. "Mining beams are performing exactly as designed," her chief engineer reported. "We're successfully extracting all metallic components from their outer hull layers. Separation and storage systems are at 60% capacity." Through the viewport, Minji could see other human ships engaging, their mining beams carefully removing specific parts of the Imperial vessels. They weren't trying to destroy the ships. That would have been easy but wasteful. Instead, they were systematically demonstrating humanity's complete understanding of matter manipulation at its most fundamental level. "Colonel," called out her sensor officer, "the Imperial ships are trying to retreat. Their engines are at full power, but they're not moving." "Of course they're not," Minji replied. "The resonance field we built up during their attack is still active. They're trying to use conventional propulsion in unconventional space." She watched as another Imperial ship lost its weapon systems to precise mining beam extraction. "Send to all ships. Begin Phase 2 of the operation. Let's show them exactly what human mining technology can do when we get creative." As her fleet continued their work, Minji reflected on the Empire's crucial mistake. They had assumed that technological advancement meant bigger weapons, stronger shields, and more powerful engines. They had never considered that a species might look at the fundamental laws of physics and decide to take a completely different approach. The Empire's mighty fleet hung helpless in space as human mining ships systematically demonstrated why underestimating humanity had been their greatest error. And somewhere in the back of her mind, Minji could still hear the echo of that first response to their threats. Simple, honest laughter. Senior scientist Sung Ho's hands trembled as he clutched his datapad, walking through the corridors of the Imperial flagship. The mighty vessel, once the pride of the Empire's fleet, now drifted powerless in space. Around them, human mining ships continued their methodical work, stripping away weapons and defensive systems as easily as peeling fruit. The bridge, normally a model of military efficiency, had descended into barely controlled chaos. Officers rushed between stations, trying desperately to restore systems that simply refused to function. In the center of it all stood Grand Marshal Kaiho, his metallic skin dulled with stress, watching as his mighty fleet was systematically dismantled by what appeared to be industrial equipment. "My lord," Sung Ho called out, his voice shaking slightly. "We've completed our analysis of the human technology. The results are unexpected." Kaiho turned slowly, his mandibles clicking softly. Through the viewport behind him, another Imperial warship was being carefully taken apart by golden beams of light. "What have you found?" The humans, Sung Ho began, then paused to gather his thoughts. They don't use conventional technology. They developed along a completely different scientific path than our civilization. The Grand Marshal stared at the display showing his disabled flagship. Entire sections of the mighty vessel had simply vanished, removed with surgical precision by the human mining beams. "Explain," he ordered, his voice unnaturally quiet. "Their technology isn't more advanced than ours," Sung Ho continued, bringing up diagrams on his datapad. "It's just different. Our shields are useless because they operate in dimensions we didn't know existed. While we focused on mastering three-dimensional space and time, they explored other directions entirely." A nearby weapons officer spoke up. "But their ships look so primitive. They're using mining equipment." "That's just it," Sung Ho replied, growing more animated as he explained. "What we see as mining equipment is actually technology operating on principles we barely understand. Their mining beams don't cut through matter. They temporarily shift it into another dimensional state. They're not destroying our ships. They're simply relocating parts of them." Kai-Ho watched as another golden beam passed through his ship's supposedly impenetrable shields. "Can we adapt our technology to counter this?" "No, my lord," Sung Ho said quietly. "Not without completely rebuilding our understanding of physics from the ground up. Everything we know about energy shields, weapon systems, even basic propulsion, it all assumes a universe operating the way we thought it did. The humans simply looked at the same universe and saw something completely different." Around them, the bridge crew had fallen silent, listening to the explanation of their defeat. Through the viewports, they could see human ships moving with perfect precision, their seemingly random patterns now revealing themselves as an intricate dance through dimensions they couldn't perceive. "That's why they laughed," Kai-Ho said suddenly, understanding dawning in his eyes. "When we threatened them with our superior technology. They knew it was irrelevant." Sung Ho finished. "It's like threatening to sink a flying ship. Our weapons, our shields, our entire approach to space warfare, it all operates on principles they moved beyond centuries ago." A junior science officer approached with new readings. "Sir, we're detecting unusual energy patterns throughout the fleet. It's as if parts of our ships exist in multiple states at once." "Yes," Sung Ho confirmed. "The humans aren't just defeating us. They're demonstrating the fundamental flaw in our understanding of reality itself. Each precise cut from their mining beams shows us another aspect of physics we never knew existed." Kai-Ho watched as another weapon system vanished from his ship, carefully extracted by technology he could no longer pretend to understand, and the random movements of their ships before the attack. "Not random at all," Sung Ho explained. "They were building up what they call a resonance field, a multi-dimensional construct that makes their technology even more effective. While we wasted energy trying to attack them, they were using our own actions to create the perfect conditions for their response." The bridge fell silent again as this information sank in. The Empire had encountered many civilizations, conquered many worlds, but never had they faced an enemy that made their mighty technology seem so utterly obsolete. "Send to all ships," Kai-Ho ordered finally. "Stand down all weapons. Power down all systems." He turned to face his crew. "We came here to teach humanity a lesson about technological superiority. Instead, they are teaching us one." As the order spread through the fleet, the human mining beams continued their work, methodically demonstrating just how much the Empire had yet to learn about the true nature of the universe. Bright stars twinkled through the transparent dome of the neutral station New Perspective, their light mixing with the soft blue glow of Earth visible in the distance. The station, hastily converted from a research outpost, now hosted the most important diplomatic meeting in human history. Admiral Tai Young sat at one end of the simple metal table, his weathered hands folded calmly before him. Across from him sat Grand Marshal Kai-Ho, his metallic skin still showing signs of stress from recent events. The Imperial leader's mighty fleet now floated powerless nearby, partially dismantled by human mining technology. Between them sat a simple pot of tea, steam rising gently into the air, a human gesture of peace that Kaiho had graciously accepted. Around them, both human and imperial staff maintained a respectful distance, watching as their leaders met as equals. "You understand now?" Tae-young asked kindly, pouring tea for both of them. "Why we laughed when you first arrived?" Kaiho nodded slowly, his mandibles moving in what humans had learned was a gesture of deep thought. "Your people saw through our assumptions from the start. You knew our technology, while impressive, was just one path among many." He lifted the teacup carefully with his metallic hands. "We thought we had mastered the universe." "The universe is vast," Tae-young replied, sipping his own tea. "And there's always more than one way to solve a problem. When humanity first reached for the stars, we could have followed the same path you did. Bigger engines, stronger weapons, more powerful shields. Instead, we asked different questions. Around them, human and imperial technical staff had begun to mingle, sharing diagrams and discussions. An imperial scientist watched in fascination as a human engineer demonstrated a simple mining beam, showing how it shifted matter between dimensional states. "Your mining vessels," Kaiho said. "They're not really mining vessels at all, are they?" Tae-young smiled. "Oh, but they are. We simply found that understanding the fundamental nature of matter in space made mining easier. The fact that it also made your weapons useless was an interesting side effect." For the first time since the conflict began, Kaiho's mandibles moved in what humans now recognized as a smile. "And our mighty fleet will be restored," Tae-young assured him. "We stored every component we removed. In fact, if you're interested, we could help you modify your ships to operate on similar principles. There's no reason our civilizations can't learn from each other." The two leaders shared a genuine laugh, the sound echoing through the station. Around them, their staff looked up in surprise, then slowly began to join in. The tension that had filled the room began to dissolve. "Tell me," Kaiho asked, setting down his teacup, "what would you have done if we had attacked your colonies instead of just a mining station?" "The same thing," Tae-young replied honestly. "Our technology doesn't work because it's more powerful than yours. It works because it operates on principles you hadn't discovered yet. The scale of the attack wouldn't have mattered." As they talked, engineers from both sides had begun sharing notes and diagrams. Imperial scientists watched in amazement as humans demonstrated their understanding of multidimensional space, while human researchers eagerly studied the Empire's mastery of conventional physics. "Perhaps," Kaiho suggested, "it's time for the Empire to reconsider its approach to meeting new civilizations. And perhaps," Tae-young added, "humanity could benefit from your centuries of experience among the stars. Shall we discuss how our civilizations can learn from each other?" The former enemies shared another laugh, this one warmer and more genuine than the first. Around them, their crews had already begun the process of collaboration, sharing knowledge and techniques that would benefit both societies. As the meeting continued, the stars continued to shine through the station's dome, their light falling equally on humans and Imperials alike. The universe, vast and mysterious, had brought together two civilizations that had approached its mysteries from completely different directions. And now, together, they would explore what other wonders it might hold. Outside the station, Earth turned slowly below them, its blue oceans and white clouds a reminder of where humanity had begun its journey into the stars. And in the distance, the Imperial fleet waited patiently for its restoration, its presence no longer a threat, but a promise of adventures to come. The day that had begun with the threat of conquest ended with the promise of cooperation, proving once again that understanding could bridge even the widest of gaps between civilizations.